So the Ride for the Living is part of an annual 4-day event that features a bike ride that starts just outside the gates of Auschwitz-Birkenau and finishes about 100 kilometers later here in town at the Krakow Jewish Community Center. The ride is a way of promoting education and awareness of the events of the Holocaust, while at the same time celebrating the rebirth of Jewish life here in Krakow. The 6th edition of the ride just took place yesterday as we record this. The whole event was inspired by a bike journey made by Robert Desmond in 2013 when he rode more than 2,000 kilometers from his home in London to Auschwitz, visiting a number of sites related to the Second World War along the way. Robert is an active participant in the Ride for the Living, and he's here with us here in the studio to talk about his original trip, what it's grown into today, and the larger subject of education about the Holocaust. Robert, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
How are the legs? You just did the ride yesterday. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. Yeah, I've done a few rides before, so yesterday was manageable.
Good biking shape?
I'm not now, so we just had our second baby boy.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. He's 9 months now, so...
By the way, Basha is here in the studio with us. Hello, Basha.
Hello.
And congratulations to you too.
Thank you.
So there's not so much time to go out training.
Was it a good day for a bike ride yesterday, or a little too warm?
It was perfect. Yeah. So as you know, the last few weeks have been a little bit hot. But yesterday, I think we had 6 rabbis who must have been praying for cooler weather. And we got some clouds in the morning, and it was nice and sunny in the afternoon coming into Krakow.
Okay, let's get in our time machine and go back to 2013. just a little over 2,000 kilometer trip. What was the was there a spark that kind of gave you the idea of putting the ride together? And when you looked at the map, were you kind of intimidated by 2,000 kilometers? And take us through the thought process of what resulted in your original bike ride.
Yeah, so about 8 years ago now, I first came to Krakow and visited Auschwitz. And it was only that I was standing in Birkenau when it sort of hit me how significant the Holocaust was. I mean, I grew up as a Jew. I have a Jewish identity. I had a bar mitzvah. We talked about the Holocaust, but we never really got into details. We studied it at school, at GCSEs, but it was more kind of like you study the Romans or you study ancient Egypt. And so it was never anything I connected to in any way. The only thing I had knowledge of was like 6 million Jews. And so it was actually standing there, taking the time to be in the place, that it really hit me that I knew very little about what happened not that long ago and not that far away as well from London.
Well, yeah, it wasn't ancient history or anything like that. It was quite recent, actually.
And what really made it hit home was like it's closer than Spain for me. Going from London to Spain, we used to go on holiday in the summers, and it's closer than Spain. And it is within living memory, and obviously there are many survivors around today who were there. And so there was a spark when I was actually standing in Birkenau that was, how are my friends and even my non-Jewish friends who have no connection to this meant to learn and understand about this? So I went back to London with the life mission of trying to get friends to go and visit. And unfortunately, Auschwitz is an intimidating idea. Like, people don't want to go and be depressed for a weekend or a few days, whatever. So after 2 years, I got no one to go, and I was a bit sort of upset about that. In the meantime, I met a lovely Polish lady who lived in a town called Katowice, which is only 40 kilometers away from Auschwitz.
Was her name Basha?
Her name was Basha.
Oh, okay. Lucky guess.
And I looked at the map, and Basha wouldn't move to London for me, so I said, okay, I'll come to Poland. And I looked at the map, and there was Auschwitz not that far away. I'd cycled across Europe before, and this idea of cycling from London to Auschwitz as having a purpose really just fell into place. And then looking at the map, I saw the Normandy beaches are kind of on the way if you go the wrong way. But it's something that I wanted to go and visit, and then Paris is on the way, Palace of Versailles, Verdun, Flossenburg camp, Theresienstadt, Nuremberg, where the rallies were and the trials after the war. And so it turned into this sort of educational trip for me that I wanted to tell people about. So I blogged about it every day. I have now since got a book, which I will come back and give you guys on another day, which was basically my reactions as a 22-year-old on that ride, 22, 23-year-old, to all of these places. And that was really the main goal. It was only when I got to Katowice with Basho and we said, okay, what should we do for this weekend? And I knew of the Jewish Community Center in Krakow, so we came for a Friday night dinner. And the contrast of having spent like 25 days on the bike thinking about World War II, the Holocaust, and then seeing life and people singing and dancing and just having a lovely Jewish community.
One extreme to the other. Yeah.
Exactly. And then it was from falling in love with Poland, with Basho, with the JCC, that we were just talking, and the bike ride should not end in Auschwitz. Like, the Jewish story doesn't end with death. We're still alive today, and we should celebrate that. It's definitely something that shaped us as a people, but it doesn't define who we are. Like, survivors are not defined by being survivors. They're people in their own right. But we do want to get their story out of them. So it's yeah.
See, this original ride from London to Auschwitz took 25 days, yeah?
25 days, yeah.
With stops along the way at these various places that you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much, I picked up a map and pointed at things that I thought would be interesting and just tried to do as many miles as I could to get there. I would stop, I would take my time around the Normandy beaches, which was beautiful. And then when I'm ready, just go, get to the next town. If I'm tired, find a hostel or whatever to sleep in.
Prior to that, did you have any experience with that kind of long-distance cycling?
I did London to Barcelona a few years before, which was just awesome, just to get on your bike and go through France and through like the massive Central, which I didn't know about till I got there, which was like loads of mountains.
Oops.
Yeah,
kind of an important issue for cyclists, I think.
Yeah, I was like, the Parc Volcanique. I'm like, my French isn't that good, but that doesn't sound like it's going to be that much fun on a bike with panniers. Yeah, so I mean, I think getting on a bike and exploring is an awesome thing to do.
So the London to Auschwitz was your most ambitious trip up to that point?
Yes, huh? Yeah, for sure.
So maybe a silly question, I think I know the answer already, but knowing what your finish line was on that trip, arriving at Auschwitz, it must have been that much more motivating, you know, keeping you going along those tough days on the road, knowing that, you know, there was kind of a deeper meaning to the trip.
For sure. I mean, when I did London to Barcelona, I got, particularly in the mountains in the middle of France, I got quite sad and sort of lonely and exhausted. And there wasn't really like a point to it other than just doing it. Whereas on this ride, I never once thought I'm going to stop, because I was also seeing sights along the way and learning, which was really fantastic, and the way I think all adventures should be.
In your blog, which I've read, because you blogged your experience as day by day during those 25 days, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember on that final day, day 25, I suppose, when you were approaching Auschwitz, physically, maybe, the previous 3 weeks were catching up with you. It was tough, but knowing, again, your destination, you're kind of, in a sense, kind of guilted into kind of dismissing those feelings of physical discomfort, because you know that the people you were there to kind of honor, in a sense, had to deal with much more than the inconveniences of a bike ride.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I get involved in a few Holocaust education initiatives, one of which is March of the Living as well, which is like a week-long tour around the whole of Poland, visiting historical sites. And I don't know if it's good, or one observation from these trips is, if someone's complaining like the hot water isn't hot enough in the bath, or like, you think, look where we are,
right.
Like, look what we're learning about.
Right.
You can't complain that the food's not good enough, or,
minor inconvenience.
Yeah.
For sure. Let me go back to something you touched on a bit earlier. You said, again, after that original trip, you came here to Krakow, you went to the JCC, and a conversation about what you had just done somehow, or the trip, of course, kind of was the genesis, or the seed of the idea that grew into what we know today as the Ride for the Living. Walk us through that process. Do you kind of recall, was it a very quick and easy thing? Was it obvious that we need to do this every year? Or what was the kind of evolution of what became the Ride for the Living after that point?
So it was like none of this was planned. we were just sitting around with Jonathan Ornstein, who I know you know, who's the director.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm glad you mentioned his name because actually I should have given him a quick thank you at the top of the show. In fact, it was Jonathan who connected us.
Yes, exactly.
Robert, because I reached out to Jonathan some time ago. I said, we'd like to do some more shows this year around the time of the Jewish festival. He mentioned the Ride for the Living, and here we are. So thank you, Jonathan. Yeah.
It was with Jonathan, I think Sebastian, who also helps run the show there, actually run the show. Jonathan is just the pretty face, although maybe, yeah.
I'm just going to let that go.
Yeah, let's go past that. Can we redo it?
No, sorry, too late. Keep going.
And another guy called Justin Cadis, who was a fellow there, who I just saw today for lunch. And we were just talking about like supporting the JCC, what can we do? And we said we should do some sort of bike ride together with the JCC. And then suddenly this idea of, hey, why don't we do it away, continue the bike ride? The story doesn't end in Auschwitz. Let's continue from there, away from there. Let's be clear, the commemoration, the memorialization is key in the education. Like, we want people to come and learn, but we also want them to see the message that the JCC has, which is like, we as Jews are still here and we're going to celebrate life and look forward to the future as well as looking back.
So if you did the original ride in 2013, I'm doing the math in my head here, I guess the first Ride of the Living was organized through the JCC was not long after that, right?
Yeah, so the first ride was together with the JCC. We had Rabbi Avi, we had...
Avi Baumel.
Avi Baumel.
He's been a guest here on our show, actually.
Fantastic.
Yes. One of our more entertaining guests. Great guy. Yeah.
He's awesome.
Yes.
We had Avi, we had Basha came with us as well, we had Justin and his family, and a few of my friends from London, a few other people from America as well.
Do you remember how many people there were in total for that first ride?
Yeah, there were 15 the first year.
15?
And we didn't really, it was like my bike ride. It was just, let's get on a bike, let's use an iPhone with Google Maps and work out where to go each turn. We got lost, but we made it back, and we had a lovely Shabbat dinner.
Good lesson to learn.
Yeah,
plan the route a little more carefully, I guess, right?
Yeah, and then the second. So what was really cool was after the first year, we raised money for the Holocaust survivors at the JCC to go on a trip to Israel. Many of them had not been to Israel before, and actually quite a few of them had not been on a plane. Or even abroad. So it was a really, really special trip. And after that, we said, okay, we clearly have to do this again. So in the promoting for the next year, we got a phone call to the JCC from this guy in Canada, and we're like, wow, we've reached Canada. And he's like, actually, I'm from Krakow. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. He's like, yeah, and I'm a survivor. And I was in Auschwitz, Birkenau, and I was liberated from Auschwitz, Birkenau. And I had to walk the same route that you cycle from Auschwitz to Krakow to try and find his family. And this was Marcel Zielinski, who then joined us. He said, I'm going to come. I'm a keen cyclist. I'm 80 years old, but I'm going to come. I'm going to come with my son and my 2 granddaughters, and I'm going to be part of this. And so the next trip was 85 people, and it was extremely moving to be there with Marcel, who lost all of his family, apart from his mother, fortunately. I don't know what the right
literally retracing the steps that he took all those years earlier.
And doing it at the age of 80 is like...
Good for him.
Every year since he's been, unfortunately, this year, he was going to be sitting next to me right here as we did this podcast, but unfortunately he had a fall on his bike a couple of weeks ago and hurt his hip, so he hasn't managed to make it. But he's here with us in spirit, for sure. And I spoke to him yesterday throughout the ride, and he's sad to be missing it. But
from those 15 people in the first Ride of the Living up till yesterday, the 6th edition, how many people took part yesterday?
About 250 we got
250.
Yeah.
So from 15 to 250 in 6 years, pretty good. Every reason to expect we're going to hit 300 next year, maybe?
I would love it to get bigger and bigger. I think the message is extremely powerful, and the message that the JCC has for celebrating life, and despite what happened down the road, literally we cycle it. We live in 2019. Let's do something positive today, but also let's try and get people here to understand what intolerance can lead to, because as you guys know, the world is divided, and there's a rise of anti-Semitism, there's rise of a lot of racism everywhere.
You mentioned Marcel, who's living in Canada today. Give us an idea of kind of the international flavor of the Ride of the Living today and the trip that people make from different corners of the world.
We have everyone from everywhere. We have some people from Brazil, from America, from Canada. I think we had someone from Puerto Rico as well. The UK, obviously, Israel, Poland. We have some people from Australia and I think New Zealand too. Like from literally everywhere in the world.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about one thing. Take me through the practical considerations of. A bike ride, it's 100 kilometers. You're not racing, but still, it's a long way. There are lots of people on the ride who, maybe because of their age or their lack of experience, these are not your classical cyclists. What are the things you do to make sure that physically everybody can make the trip in a safe way?
So as you said, it's not a race, it's a ride. And the point of it is to be there and take part in whatever way. So if you aren't capable of riding, you can still come for the ceremony and be part of it that way. A few people who want to, and particularly a few young kids, I think there was a 7-year-old and a 9-year-old just did the first 20K, and then you get on a bus and there's support vehicles and everything. If you want to pull out at any point, you can. We have doctors, we have medical, like everything is covered. What is amazing, though, is like Marcel is one example, but there are plenty of other survivors, more elderly people who've done the ride who should probably stop, but they're like, no, I'm going to keep going. I want to finish this. And it's amazing to see that determination. I mean, that's what got them through what they got through. Wait, I'd like to turn around and say, no, please just get up. There's no shame in getting on the bus. I've got on the bus.
Oh, but they've got the spirit and the determination to keep going.
Yeah.
Is there something like what do you call it? Like a police escort or like closed off roads or something like that to make it safer?
Yeah. So now we've got so big, the local councils won't let us do it without closing the roads or having police escort.
I mean, 250 people on bikes. It is a lot.
So out of Auschwitz, in the town of Auschwitz, we have a police escort, and then into Krakow, we have a police escort from Tyniec, which is like 10K up the river, which is very cool. They close off the road, everyone gets out of the way, and everyone waves, and like, what are these weirdos doing on a bike? And it's very special coming into Krakow.
I have to ask, you mentioned coming into Krakow, that those last 5 kilometers, as you get into the city. Yeah, I think you cross the Vistula at some point. You come into Kazimierz. I have to ask, is it just very emotional because of the deeper meaning of the ride, or is it more like, oh, okay, now I'm finished? What does it feel like?
We have a whole mix of emotions. I think some of the less experienced riders are like, oh, thank goodness we're home.
Yeah, but, done. But
for me, it's particularly when I look around and see how much it's grown. Yeah, it's massively emotional. Like this was never like a plan. It just happened, and people grabbed onto the idea and started telling their friends, and it's grown. It's very cool.
Dr. Mike is here. He's hiding over there on the corner. I'm going to drag him into the conversation. Dr. Mike, jump in here.
No, I have to say that I find it's very moving, as you spoke earlier, that the Holocaust was a tragedy of unimaginable scope. But it's important to remember that, life went on. And I like how you said that, people have to remember that people walked away from Auschwitz, from the camps, and the culture, the traditions, the heritage all keeps on going. And now you can come to Krakow and see Jewish culture thriving and living and being celebrated. And I think that's, a poignant point to be made, that no matter what kind of tragedies can occur, we can go on and we can learn from them, but then and celebrate the life and the positive aspects of our existence. And I found that very, very.
Robert, just pretend there was a question in there and run with it.
I know I can respond to that, even though there's no question. One of the lines we have at the JCC is that, so the purpose of the JCC is to be an open and welcoming place for any Jew in Krakow. Actually, it's for anyone who wants to come and learn about anything Jewish. And what's happened in communism is people who did have some sort of Jewish identity were pushed underground. They didn't have an opportunity to express their Judaism, and they had to hide it. And now today, the JCC is there with open arms saying, come in and learn about your heritage and become part of it. And there's so many cases, and it's beautiful to see. And the line they have is, we can't change the number of Jews who died in the Holocaust, but we can change the number of Jews who were lost. Because there are people in Krakow, there are people in Poland who have those Jewish roots, who are discovering them because their grandparents are on their deathbed, or they're Googling their name, or they find some documents in the attic, and then they have this urge to find out more. And that's what the JCC is about, and bringing that to life.
I mean, this is definitely a positive change. I've lived in Krakow for about 20 years now, and I finished high school here, and I remember being a little surprised when you had groups of Jewish teenagers, kids coming to Poland, but they would only come and see, the remnants of the synagogue. They would go to Auschwitz, Birkenau, but they would never actually interact with the local culture here. For them, Poland, Krakow was just the Holocaust, the death, the tragedy. But it's really turned around in the last few years, where they also realize now, they bring in these groups of young people, that there was life here and there is life here now. And I'm guessing, you've really helped add to that, and that's something you should be proud of. But it's an exciting way to move forward.
I think a lot of particularly Jews think of Poland as being a graveyard of Jews. And now I've completely fallen in love with the country, and I've experienced no anti-Semitism in Poland, probably significantly less than in London, certainly. Yeah, so there's a lot of tours that have come to Poland, and they focus on the death, and they don't see that life. And I think it's sad that it's missed, because you have this preconception. You go through the whole of Poland, you just see graveyards, you just see death camps, and you have very little interaction with Polish people. And so you genuinely believe that Poland is a graveyard.
Which actions like yours and JCC help remind people that that's not the case. And that's definitely important work that's being done. Do you think you're going to do another 2,000-mile trip anytime soon?
I am thinking about
2,000 kilometers.
Yeah, 2,000.
It was only like 1,500 miles, wasn't that much?
Yeah.
Come on.
I am actually. We're trying to work out new challenges. Basher and I are going to cycle from Katowice to Vienna, hopefully over the summer, which is like 400k, just as a fun little adventure.
Yeah, just for the weekend. Yeah,
since doing London to Auschwitz, I did London to Anne Frank's house, and then we went on to Westerbork, another historical Holocaust tour. I seem to like these things. We went on to Westerbork, which is the transit camp that all the Jews went through in Holland, and we went on to Bergen-Belsen, which is where Anne Frank passed away, where she died. And then we came and did Ride for the Living straight after, and obviously Anne Frank was in Auschwitz as well. So it tied the whole Anne Frank story together nicely.
Or let me ask about kind of education and awareness about the Holocaust in England, in the UK, I should say. I can just tell you, this is anecdotal, of course, but over the years here in Krakow, I've seen quite a number of school groups here from the UK. And of course, a visit to Auschwitz is always a part of their itinerary. And I know that there are funds and foundations that finance trips specifically designed to educate the kids around the subject of the Holocaust. What can you tell us about, I don't know, kind of the level of awareness of this chapter of history, and kind of the activities that the efforts, the organized efforts to kind of make sure that more people are educated about this?
So the level of education and awareness, I believe, is very low. I know certainly in the States, the majority of Americans don't even know what Auschwitz is. So to try and comprehend the Holocaust, it's something needs to be done with education. And I know many charities trying to do this. There's a Centre for Holocaust Education in Nottingham that takes school kids around the age of, I think, as early as 9 years old, and introduces this idea of intolerance and what that can lead to. They obviously don't go into details of the Holocaust, but the messages and the lessons are being taught in many different charities. Holocaust Education Trust do the one-day trips to Poland. They can't.
Is it a one-day trip?
Yeah, they do one day.
Wow.
So they come straight in the morning. They go straight to Auschwitz. and then
full-on day, isn't it?
and then leave in the evening. Okay. It's extremely intense. Obviously, we'd love it if every kid in the UK could come for a week and see the death sites, and they could see the JCC and the message that has. But there's financial limitations, obviously.
Let's bring it back to the ride for a second. Something I should have asked him a moment ago, but I forgot. Easiest question ever. Softball question for you, Robert. Can you put into words kind of the feeling of, I guess, I don't know, pride, the gratification you feel when you look at what the Ride of the Living is today, and when you think back six years ago to your ride, your 2,000 kilometer ride from London to Auschwitz? Tell us how it feels to look at it today, and just to know that you are the source of what we're talking about.
It's not a softball question at all.
No?
Because it's very strange. It doesn't feel real. It's like an out of body experience. Like this was never planned. This just happened. And it's something I was talking to Basha about earlier. I feel very emotionally confused by the whole thing, because like there's a lot of attention on me in this original bike ride. Really, my goal is to just help people see it, and so I'm incredibly impressed and like humbled by the whole thing.
And in all fairness, I think to give credit where credit is due, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the JCC that assumes the organizational and administrative responsibilities to execute everything.
Yeah, there's an amazing team at the JCC who sort out the ride. So Sebastian and Agnieszka, who sort out flights, hotels, all the itinerary, buses, food, all this sort of stuff, and the route, of course, and the bike hire, and everything is taken care of.
Getting it done,
and
essentially.
yeah, they just get it done.
So we're sitting here giving you most of the credit, but we let the JCC do the work.
Exactly.
Okay, well that's okay. That's okay. Well, again, full credit to the JCC
they
as well.
They do all of it
for their efforts. Robert, before we let you go and before I let you get out of here, I have to ask you about something. When you and I were kind of chatting back and forth on Messenger before we met today, you meant I've got to ask about this, unless I misread it somehow. Did you kayak the length of the Vistula River?
Yes, I did. So the first summer I got to Poland.
Wait, as if the 2,000 kilometer bike ride weren't enough. You kayak. Isn't the Vistula like 1,000 kilometers end to end?
Yes, I can tell you that.
Upstream or downstream?
Downstream.
Oh, it's easy. No problem.
Yeah. It doesn't flow that much. You guys have
That's true. It barely moves.
Exactly.
He's right. It barely moves. All right. So tell us about this.
So this was the first summer when I got to Poland, and I love the country. We've been hiking in Zakopane, in Bielsko, and we did some kayaking on some lakes, Basha and I wanted to do another adventure.
You couldn't be satisfied with just a few hours on the river. You had to do the whole thing.
Yeah, why not? No?
How long did that take?
Is that not what you guys think when you see a river? You're like, I wonder where it starts, and I wonder where it goes to, and I wonder if I can
I just check the map. I check Wikipedia. That's what I do.
So slightly more than that, we found, Bash and I hiked to the top of Risi, which is the highest peak. Have you guys been there?
I've seen it on Wikipedia.
Okay.
I think my dad's been on it. I don't know if I've been on it. I don't think so.
How have you guys not been on it?
I'm not a mountain person. I'm a coastal seaside kind.
I have been around there. I just haven't climbed to the top of that.
Wow, this really makes us look bad, doesn't it? Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was here actually we were here a week and we did it.
Oh boy. All right. You've shamed us into going, or at least thinking about going.
It's beautiful. It's
I'm sure it is.
An amazing experience. So we actually did from the highest peak in Poland at Risi. I forget how high it is.
High.
Yeah.
Basha's looking, just thinking about how high it might be.
Or something like that.
Yeah, so
It's up there.
Bash and I, we hiked to the top, hiked back down.
Checking your phone.
We got on our bikes and cycled to Wisła, which is where the Wisła starts. Turns out the river or the stream at the top of Wisła, you can't kayak, so you have to then go another couple of 100 kilometers to Goczałkowice, and then from there you can get on a kayak and just go to the sea. So
Did you go all the way to the sea?
And then actually I got off there. Basha came and met me. Basha skipped the Krakow to Gdansk bit because she had a real job that required her to be in an
Some people
office.
have to go to work,
Yeah.
Robert.
But I'd like to mention that kayaking was still faster than taking the trains to get.
That's great.
How long did that take from end to end?
2 weeks. And then we finished in Hell because Hell is a cool place to end.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
And it's beautiful, and they have ice cream in hell, and the beaches are lovely, and
So
it's
many
normally
jokes to be
sunny
made. So
in
many
hell.
jokes. So wait, did you go like in Warsaw, for example? Did you go right through the center of Warsaw in your kayak?
Yeah, it's really beautiful on the river. You go past the big stadium. There's loads of food trucks.
Aren't there like restrictions on that kind of boat traffic in some cities?
Yeah, a police boat came up to me around Warsaw actually, and they said something, and my Polish, well, it still isn't very good, but it was pretty non-existent then, and somehow we communicated that I was like kayaking all the way to the sea, and they were like, oh, okay, and they just kind of left me.
The police in action.
Yeah.
I mean, as long as you're leaving their jurisdiction, they don't. Somebody else's
keep
problem.
Going, bye, whatever. All right. So 2,000 kilometers from London to Auschwitz on a bike. 2 weeks kayaking the Vistula end to end. These things come in threes, right? These kind of adventures come in threes. So you've got to complete the trilogy here. Any ideas what you might do?
I don't. Can I just say though that on that trip, I didn't. That's probably when I properly fell in love with Poland because I met so many people on the way, like those policemen who I couldn't communicate with, but who would just help me out, and they would like watch my kayak or help me with some accommodation, or when I got stuck in Płock because it was a terrible day and there's a lock and actually it doesn't flow. So I went it took 12 hours to go 40 kilometers. I definitely could have walked much quicker. That was a super painful day. This guy said, I will look after your kayak. I will get you a cab.
It's all part of the adventure,
go to
right?
a hotel and get a shower and stuff. So it was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Well, Ride for the Living, we're going to put links in the show description below in case you're not familiar with it. 6 years. Congratulations to you, Robert. Again, we're giving credit to you, but we're letting the JCC do the work, but that's okay. Congratulations on everything at home as well, but to both of you, Robert and Basha. And we'll look forward to seeing you back here for the 7th year.
Yes, can I formally invite all of you? I know most of you ride bikes, right?
Yep.
We do.
So
I think I have one in my parents' garage from when I was 13.
All right. Yeah. So
you guys have to come next year.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what.
You can't have anything in the diary now this time next year, right?
I'll have to consult my social secretary on that, Robert, but I'm pretty sure I'm free that day.
Great.
I am. Josh and myself do bike quite a bit. I guess we really should. Yeah, we really should.
It's been a while since I've done a 2,000k bike.
But this is only 100.
Oh, that's and so
How hard can it be, right?
Isn't it kind of downhill from there as well?
It's literally downhill because you follow the river.
behind you this year as well, didn't you?
Again, the rabbis, thank you very much.
And just quickly, Robert, how many hours did the whole trip take yesterday?
So I did it a few years ago with my dad, and he said it's more like a feast with a bit of cycling in between. So it takes the whole day, but we have lots of stops.
If that's the case, we're in then for sure. Absolutely. Robert and Basha, thanks for joining us here on the KrakCast.
Thank you very much.